All right, man. It's nice to meet you, Ari.
Likewise.
Yeah, I'm Scott. Alex, Blast Factory. Got a couple really good questions for you today, man. Just to start off, how did you get into mixing?
I started as a tracking engineer. I spent about the first 10 years of my career working as a tracking engineer full time. I started as an intern at a studio, scrubbing toilets, doing food runs, all that. Worked my way up at the studio and kind of became the go-to engineer there and just really focused on tracking. And what happened was a lot of the, when you track a session, you do a rough mix for the client, right? So what started happening was I would do rough mixes for people real quick, and then artists would come back later and be like, man, I just had so-and-so mix it, and everybody likes your rough better, so we're gonna use that.
Nice.
And it started being that people would come in and I'd do a record and we'd do the rough mix and it would be on the radio that night. So that kind of started to shift my focus into mixing, and it's just kind of a natural progression. When you start as a tracking engineer, generally the next step, if one finds a niche in mixing, and for me now it's just honing the sound that we have.
Yeah, we were listening to some of your stuff on the way in, man. It sounds great.
Oh,
seriously.
Thank you, man.
Sound great.
Thank
Her
you.
car has some really good bass, and we felt it.
Oh yeah.
So,
oh yeah, if I mix it, there's gonna be plenty of bass in there.
What made you want to be an audio engineer?
I was always kind of a nerd, and I played in bands as a kid, and we were in a band, me and my friends, and we had no money, and somebody had to figure out how to make a demo, and I was the one who kind of figured it out, and I started really enjoying it, and ended up was what was the first? I used to record people's music school auditions in high school and stuff like that, just all sorts of random stuff, and just kind of fell into it, and found a passion in it.
Do you reference your mixes with other tracks, or do you just go by your own standard?
It depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing something that's really in my lane, honestly, no, I don't reference anything. If I know the room that I'm mixing in, I don't reference anything. If it's a mix where the client wants me to go more along the lines of a certain something or a certain feel, I'll reference it a little bit, but more before I start. I just kind of get that sound into my head. Once I'm really in the mix, I don't reference anything. I just trust my gut.
So what was the milestone that you reached that got you to high profile clients? Or do you feel there was a milestone?
I mean, there were a few records kind of right around the same time that all kind of just changed a lot of stuff. I was doing a lot of early work with Dolph, a lot of his early singles, even before I got heavily involved, like Not No More, Chopper on the Couch with Gucci Mane, World Go Round with Shy Glizzy. That one really picked up some steam. Then I did the Preach remix for him with Ross and Jeezy, and that did really well. We did what else kind of? Because also around that time I did a single for Turk from the Hot Boys, right when he got out of the feds, that had picked up some steam, and there was something else. Pulled Up and Get Paid were really the ones that kind of changed a lot of stuff, because those records really did well on the radio.
So you were on a lot of these guys' early hits.
Yeah. How
do you typically prep for a recording session?
Clean the studio.
Vacuum and mop.
Yes. No.
I noticed the candles in here.
Yeah, it's all about vibe. For me, if I'm in my studio, it's just a matter of getting it ready. When I'm out on the road, it's really about kind of getting in early, getting comfortable, making sure that everything is right for the vibe, for the artist, everything is set up right for the artist, everything works. The assistants and everybody know how to handle my clients, and, just kind of make sure that I'm comfortable by the time they get there.
So how do you like to prep for a mixing session?
Most important thing to me is as I kind of take the original session and transfer it into my workflow, is I want to retain all the real vibes of the rough mix, so that those are present even when I start to mix, that instead of just reimagining the vibe, I can enhance and hone in on what they were trying to do, or what they are doing in that rough. But then the other important thing for me is that I get my toolkit in there, you know, get a lot of the routing and the technical stuff the way I like it. But when I load in for a mix, like, there's no presets, there's none of that. Like, I work off a blank slate. You know, I like each mix to be a unique process that I can just really retain the vibe of what the artist's doing. Like, that's the most important thing to me when mixing a record, is retain the vibe of what the artist is doing and enhance it and hone it in, focus it, get it as close to exactly how it needs to feel as possible.
I'm a big mic geek. Is mic selection really important?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What are your favorite mics?
I'm a big fan of the Telefunken 251. It's my go-to for a lot of artists. 87s are always great. I like a 67 on some people. I like the Sony mic on some people. I actually have this killer vintage 87 clone by Advanced Audio up in Canada. I love it. The thing is a tank. Like, I've had it, it's gone all over a good portion of the world with me, and hasn't missed a beat yet.
I'm personally a fan of the 251.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're a man of culture too. That's awesome.
It's one of my favorites, man. Like, one of my go-tos for a lot of people. But if it doesn't work on that person, it really doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not as kind of universal as like 87. You know, I can put 87 on anybody and get exactly what I want.
Gotcha. And what DAW do you prefer to use?
Pro Tools.
Pro Tools.
For recording, mixing, all that. Pro Tools.
Do you mind me asking, is there like a certain function or feature that you just love about Pro Tools?
Everything. I don't know, man. I've been working in Pro Tools every day of my life for like 10 years now. Yeah. It's just home. I know how to do anything that I need to do, and I can do it quickly.
Okay.
But for the creative side of things, I'm really a fan of Ableton right now. Like, that's like, for creative stuff, it's dope. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty, Pro Tools is just home for me.
I got you. I've seen a lot of EDM producers get pretty into Ableton recently too.
Oh, it's dope. It sounds great.
Yeah. Like,
as a DAW, man, it sounds awesome. The drums hit in there.
So, how does your vocal change compared to someone who's rapping versus someone singing? It's like a big difference in.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a preset guy, and I'm not I don't use the same stuff. Even on, like, I might not use the same chain on every song on one project for one artist. Like, it's really like my whole process is really just getting it to sit right with the music to me. So, like, you know, an artist isn't necessarily going to have the same feel on every song, right? One song might be a little more aggressive. One song might be mellow. You know, the keys of the songs and the timbre of their voice will change, which will drastically change how you have to EQ the voice anyway. My process is weird, man. I just kind of like go with my gut and like what I feel like is right. And, you know, when it feels right to me, I know. And when it feels right to me, I'm like, okay, we're there.
If you had like one favorite plugin, what would it be?
One?
Or if there's just one currently you like to use a lot.
I mean, the one that gets used the most is probably the FabFilter Q3.
Nice.
But my favorite plugin right now is the the Thermionic Culture Vulture in the UAD set.
I don't even know if I can pronounce that. What?
It's called the Culture Vulture.
The Culture Vulture.
Yeah, it's nice. In the UAD set. It's a really cool box. Does some interesting things.
Nice. Thermionic Culture Vulture. How do you keep your ears fresh? Do you listen to different genres?
Yeah. I listen to all sorts of stuff. Or just don't listen to music for extended periods of time.
Of course, too. What's on your playlist right now, if you don't mind me asking? Like,
I just listened to that Rhapsody project.
Oh, nice. That just came out, right?
Yeah, it's a killer. She's a beast, man. She's nuts. What else have I been listening to? A lot of podcasts.
Podcasts?
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the Joe Rogan show?
Yeah, I listen to those. It's football right now though. Got to get ready for the fantasy season.
Gotcha.
Missy's project was really cool. That made me happy. I haven't been listening much. I've been mixing so many records. I haven't been listening to other stuff.
Staying busy is good too. Yeah.
I've been, when I'm mixing a project, I really don't listen to anything else. I just kind of stay in that project. So.
For an aspiring audio engineer, would you recommend going to school, or would you recommend more hands-on approach? How would you recommend someone get their education just getting into this?
I think the most important thing is finding somebody that you can, you start as an intern and then you ultimately become a mentee of theirs. If you can find somebody who's doing the stuff that interests you and find a way to become useful to them and get under their wing and soak up their knowledge. But I went to audio engineering school. I graduated, but I was working in studios before I was in school. During school, I had records out on the radio while I was in school still. So the school was great. It taught me a lot of black and white, kind of technical knowledge that, you have to get ingrained to really fly and be creative with. But, for me, it really came down to just being in studios all the time. You couldn't get rid of me. When I was interning at the studio, I was there all day, every day. Even if I didn't have work, I was just there.
Is there any advice for new artists who are building a relationship with their audio engineers that you would give?
Run with it. Be creative. The relationship, the role of a recording engineer has changed a lot in the last couple of years. You get a lot more of recording engineers doing a lot of the creative stuff within a project. So when an artist kind of is able to build that real relationship, some never, find an engineer like that and they just kind of do their thing and move around. Some end up finding that one engineer that they really just have a strong relationship with. And, it's the same kind of thing as when artists find that producer, younger artists trying to get out there, it helps a lot to find that producer that really you guys can build together and grow together. You do the same thing with a younger engineer. You find that person whose creativity is in line with what you're trying to do and who you vibe with, most importantly, who you vibe with. But you just grow, get creative, find a way to hone your sound and make it unique.
So you would say it's good to be friends a lot of time with the people that you're working with?
Not friends. No, it's business. You got to be able to vibe.
Gotcha.
That's it. You got to be able to vibe. My job is to vibe with somebody and help them create and figure out what's going on in their head and make it come out of speakers. You know what I'm saying? We don't necessarily have to be friends. We don't have to go to dinner. We don't have to hang out. We don't have to go to the bar together. Sometimes that's really cool if that's the relationship that develops, but it's still business. It's work, So it's a professional thing. You gotta come in and be cool and have a vibe and figure out how to fall in step with that artist where you just become a piece of their process.
When you're in a session, when do you feel is the most appropriate time to give advice to an artist?
Give advice to an artist?
Say if they're singing and they're struggling to come up with a creative way to deliver their line.
Well, if there's a producer, whoever the producer is, I don't. That's the producer's role. If it's something that I'm creatively involved in, then it, comes down to when you just gotta feel it, 'cause I have this theory. I never jump right in and give a suggestion, because to me that makes the assumption that what I have in my head is better than what the person in the room, on the mic, in the booth, whatever, has in their head, be it with anything. So I always just sit back personally and wait until the artist has realized their idea entirely. But everybody's thing is different. For me, it's I don't want to form an opinion on half of their idea. I want to form an opinion on their whole idea if it's something that I'm creatively involved in. If it's something where I'm purely there as an engineer and there's a producer in the room, I don't. That's not my role. That's the producer's role, the writer's role, whomever.
How much do you think up-and-coming engineers should focus on their pricing?
If you want to get paid good money, you have to deliver quality work. You know? So yeah, you want to focus on your pricing, but how you focus on your pricing is become great. You know, the middle of the road guy that charges a whole bunch of money is, why would you call them?
So is branding as important for engineers as it is for artists and producers?
Not to me. I mean, as a mixer, I have a brand, you know, and my brand is records. Like, I don't have a clothing brand, you know, my job is to realize other people's art, you know, like, it's not about me. It's about the work. It's about the records. It's about making great music. Like, that's what we do. So, like, yeah, I mean, your branding should be your work. You know, I've always just let my work speak for itself for years. You know, it's always been my approach. Is, I mean, I have a catalog. You know, you want to find out, go look at the back catalog.
So when you were coming up, how did you originally get connected with Young Dolph?
Drummer Boy. Yeah, the producer Drummer Boy. He was looking for studio and an engineer to work with on some stuff, and Drum connected him with the studio that I was working out of and the studio manager that I was working for at the time, and we just started doing records and built a relationship together, and you know, we just kind of got a vibe, and everything started running. Been running for 5 years now, 5.5 years.
It's crazy, man. It's more than like a college degree. So what was one of your proudest works that you've done on one of Young Dolph's songs? One of your favorite mixes, perhaps?
I love 100 Shots. I love it. I love it. That's one of my favorites. On God is another one of my personal favorite mixes. And I mean, you gotta like Major, because it's just done so well. And I really love One Hell of a Life, actually, on the new project on Dumb and Dumber. It's another one of my favorites.
You work not only with Young Dolph and artists like Keep It Locked, but we've also seen you work with Gucci Mane. How did you get connected with those guys?
All of that work was through Dolph. You know, like we would be, you know, like when we did what was the song on Bulletproof? The Drummer Boy production, the one that has Gucci on it. Blanking on the name. Like we cut that with Gucci. You know, we were in the studio together when we did that. So a lot of that is, you know, just me going places with Dolph. So
are there any other artists you'd like to work with in the future?
All the dope up and coming artists, all the dope current artists, man. I love working with all sorts of artists. I love working with newer artists that are, you know, fine. You know, I love as a mixer working with an artist, you know, semi-consistently. Like any mixer will tell you, it's like the best thing. We can like not only do whole projects, but do consecutive projects with artists, because it lets us hone in on the unique thing that is their sound the same way they are. You know, like the producers, the artists, they're all honing in on something, and then, you know, it'll let us as a mixer, let me as a mixer, you know, just hone in on even on the sonics of how we make it unique. So I love working with all sorts of artists, honestly. New artists, established artists. I love mixing all sorts of stuff. I'm down for whatever.
What does 2020 have in store for Ari Morris?
It's a good question. Y'all have to see.